Now, when you buy a book, like Steve, you expect it to be filled with words or diagrams or pictures.
But here's one where half of it is filled with words and the other half, well, is kind of blank.
Yet it's been a bestseller, published in 9 languages, sold in more than 40 countries. Titled The Idea Book, its Swedish author Fredrik Härén says you can use the book to unleash all manner of creative ideas.
And why should getting good ideas be important? Well, no better person than to ask Fredrik himself. Good morning, thanks for joining us.
Good morning.
So I have to ask you first, you've got to convince me, because a book that's only half filled with words and half blank, I'm thinking, well, I have my own scrap paper to put ideas down.
Right. Well, first of all, of course, I could just have done a thinner book, right? And you wouldn't have complained.
Yeah.
But instead, I added white pages. And the reason I did it is because I believe that when you read a book, it should make you think. So most books are actually monologues. You just listen to what the author is saying. I wanted to write a book that was more like a dialogue. So you read a little bit what I'm saying, and then you get some ideas into your head, and I've saved a few pages for you where you can write them down. So it becomes an interactive book.
So I've looked at it, it's every alternate page, basically. You put an idea forth and then you leave some blank pages. So is that how your concept works? Do you expect everyone to respond to each idea? Or?
Actually, people use it differently. Some people who think they're very creative or who are very creative, they use it more like a storage place for their best ideas. Because of course you can write them down on a scrap of paper, but it's nicer to have a place where you store your best ideas. Some people who are not so creative, they use the exercises in the book and they use the white pages to write down what ideas they get into their head when they're making the exercises. So people use it differently. But I must also say that if you write a book on creativity, don't you think it should be different? Because all creativity books have the same message. Do things different and you will be successful. But most creativity books are not different. They just look like all other books. So I said, if I'm going to write a book about creativity, it should also be different.
I agree.
And the advantage for me is that usually the book buying budget at companies is very small. But since my book is also a notebook, it goes on the...
Oh, right. So they can say it's also a notebook.
It goes on the stationery account.
Okay, all
Now
right.
that is a good idea.
That is a
Okay,
very, very good idea.
Because I don't buy creativity books because it seems ironic to buy a book about being creative. I mean, how creative is that?
Yeah, exactly.
So what exactly, okay, on the printed pages, what is on the book? I mean, what kind of exercises do you talk about? What kind of quotes or ideas do you give people?
I believe that we learn from stories. We have done that for thousands of years. So I basically wrote the creativity book I wanted to read, which means I took away I just saved stories, examples, quotes that we can be inspired by. And then I left the white pages for you to write the idea that gets into your head when you're reading these stories. And at the end of every chapter, there's an exercise to make you stop and think.
So why do you think that, you know, in spite of books like yours, in spite of it's a whole library of books and creativity, people still find it so hard to develop creativity, as if it's a skill set, as if it's a, you know, I mean, is it something that can be nurtured, or do you think you're born with it?
I think you're born with more or less, but I'm absolutely sure that you can increase whatever you were born with, just like with music or hitting a golf ball. Tiger Woods was born to hit a golf ball.
Well, yeah.
But he still has to practice every day. So even if you're born super creative, you still have to nurture that talent. And if you were not born with so much creative talent, even bigger reason for you to teach yourself to become a little bit more creative.
So it's possible, you think?
It's absolutely possible. The problem why so many people are not is because they have never been taught. I've asked more than 100,000 people, do you think creativity is important in your job? And everyone says yes. I'm sure you would say yes too. Yeah? But then I asked them, are you creative? And about 50% say no. And then I asked them, do you think your company is doing enough to develop your creativity? And no one said yes. Or 1% say yes.
Oh, that's depressing.
Yes. So the reason, of course, why are people not more creative? Because the companies are not doing enough. They're doing nothing.
To be fair, if I was running a company, I don't want everyone to be creative, because some people are just there to do the work. I don't want you to get creative ideas about how to do the work. Then you change the procedure, the process, which some other creative person has spent many hours coming up with. So there are pros and cons. You don't want everyone to be creative in that respect.
You're very alone in that statement, just so you know.
I don't think so.
No, even I also asked managers, a lot of managers, and they all say, I want my people to be creative. That doesn't mean I want them to be crazy
I want them
or
to
change
have
everything. I want them
initiative.
I want them to be a little bit more creative than they are now. I don't want everyone to be Leonardo da Vinci or everyone to be Richard Branson, but I want everyone in my company to be a little bit more creative.
Okay.
Everyone says that.
So I think we're saying more, you should have the initiative, be creative about what you're doing, to know how to make it better, but not to say, sit down and reanalyze and say, maybe they shouldn't have done it that way. Maybe we should try doing it my way. That's a different kind of creativity.
Yes, I agree. And but when you say creativity, a lot of people get, oh no, I don't want crazy. But creativity is not crazy. Yeah. Crazy is crazy. Creativity is finding new ways of doing things in a better way. And that can never be wrong.
So why do you think that's not happening though? Why do you think companies are sort of not encouraging creativity?
I think it's because the managers themselves haven't been taught how to develop their own creativity. So if you don't know how to do something, you can't teach someone else to do it either. So that's why I focus a lot on getting high-level managers to think about how can we develop our creativity, how can I develop my own creativity, and then they will go to the rest of their...
Well, give us an example of one such exercise that
companies.
A manager might use to help his employees sort of...
Okay, instead of doing an exercise, let me give you one example. One of my favorite HR director, Swedish HR director of the Swedish Post. She had a 2-day seminar. This is the first time she meets her new employees. She has a 2-day seminar, and she stands up on stage, and she says, this was supposed to be a 2-day seminar, but yesterday I had an idea. So today is just a 1-day seminar, and there are no speakers, there's just breaks. Quite similar to my idea with white pages. And everyone said, this is crazy. But she said, no, I just realized that what's the most important part of a conference? It's the breaks. So instead of having a 2-day conference with a few breaks, let's have a 1-day conference with only breaks. And everyone said, this is so stupid. But at the end of the conference, everyone agreed this was the best conference they ever had. And I'm not saying you should try that idea. What I'm saying is, by doing that, she showed everyone in her new company that if I have a crazy idea, I'm going to try it out, just like I just did. So she's leading by example. She's being creative in the way she leads.
That's possible to sort of change the way that you usually do things.
Yeah, so and lead by example.
Okay, and let's talk a bit more about Interesting.org, because it's an organization you formed with your brother Theo. What's that about?
Interesting.org is a creativity company. So basically what we do is that we help companies, organizations to develop the creativity of its employees. Because, like I said before, everyone thinks this is important, but most companies don't really know what to do. So when we ask them, so how are you developing your creativity? They say, well, actually, we are not doing very much. So we help them.
And you started out in Sweden, but now you've moved to Asia. In fact, now you're based in Singapore. Why did you feel the need to move to Asia?
I lived 2 years in Beijing before. So we've been doing this in Europe for 9 years. And then we said, okay, well, let's take it global. So now my brother is still left in Sweden. He's running the European operations. And I decided to move here and work in Singapore in the Asian region, setting up creativity training.
Do you see differences, cultural differences in the way you're interacting with people, the way you're spreading your message?
When I came to Asia, everyone said, oh, creativity in Asia, you have to take it slow, and they're not supposed to be very creative and all of this. So I came with one mindset, and of course that was wrong. After living in Asia for a few months, I started realizing that something is wrong with this mindset. And I actually believe that people in Asia, especially Singapore and especially India and China, have the potential to be the most creative people, maybe 10, 15 years from now. And the reason I say that is a lot of reasons, but one of the reasons is that if you live here, you have knowledge about what's happening in the West, and you have knowledge about what's happening in the East, and you are able to take snippets of different news.
But do join us tomorrow for another show.
That's right. Meantime, news continues on Channel News Asia, so you have a good day.
Have a good one.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.